Okay, I'm going to look at the theory questions for a couple of papers. We'll look at the 2015. Theory isn't a huge amount of marks, but it's just important that you can demonstrate your understanding of how the accountant works in the world of business and what they're meant to be doing. So, 2015, question one never has theory. Question two, depreciation. So, why does a company charge depreciation calculating profit? We want to spread the cost of an asset rather than over the year that we buy it. We want to spread it over the years that we use it so that we don't end up having a large loss in one year and profits in other years. It's an unrealistic showing of how well the business is doing. If we bought something for 5 years, we should end up spreading the cost over 5 years. So the factors considered determine depreciation policy. So things like how fast it's going to lose its value. So if you buy a car, it loses maybe 20% of its value in year one, but it loses maybe in year seven, it might lose 8% of its value. Um, if it's something like a computer that you know is going to have zero scrap value at the end, as in I buy a computer, I know that it's going to last me 3 years, and at the end of it, it's going to be worth nothing. I'll never be able to trade it in. So you might decide to spread that cost over 3 years. So whereas the car, because it loses a lot of value first, you might decide reducing balance. Whereas the computer, you might decide to go straight line. Um, you might talk about maybe what are the expected resale value of the item if it is that you're going to sell. What is there uncertainty in the market? You know how quickly things go out of date. Any of those kind of things would be grand for listing those factors. So I would give two factors there. Okay. Moving on to tabular statements. No theory goes to tabular statements. So this here is a farm account. Um, I'm presuming we understand how to do the rest of it. So why do we make a general profit and loss account? Is to find out the overall profit that they make in the farm as a business, so that we can work out our tax bill. So we can find out is the overall business a profitable business? Would we be better maybe selling our farm and reinvesting our money in something else if it turns out we're not making a good return on investment? Um, why do we make enterprise analysis accounts? We want to find out each section of the farm, how profitable is it? Should we maybe start thinking of being less involved in cattle because we're not making as much profit in cattle, and maybe moving more of our efforts into sheep because sheep seems to be more profitable? That's what they're looking for there. Okay. Moving on to ratios. So ratios, I presume we understand what we need for part B. Sorry, just go back to that now. Limits the ratio analysis, financial analysis technique. Very standard question, comes up all the time. So ratios, for example, are based on historic figures. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you the same trends are going to follow in the future. Ratios don't tell you, and all of these trading profit and loss figures doesn't tell you, for example, the state of the market that they're trying to operate in. It doesn't talk about how much competition the business has. It doesn't give you an idea of the morale of the business, how well people are getting on in the business. Is there a possibility of a strike being threatened? Anything like that. There's a number of other points, and they're all done fairly well in the book. So that should be a straightforward one, and it comes up all the time. Okay, so cash flow statements. So why do we do cash flow statement? We do it to try and find out what has happened to the cash that has been earned by the business. Not all of it is going to be used to pay expenses, and therefore working out a profit for the business. Some of the cash that may be earned may be diverted to fixed assets. So if we're managing, we do need to make sure we are putting money aside to pay for fixed assets. But if we're not, if we take too much of our sales money and use that to pay for investing in fixed assets, we may end up being short of cash, and then we have a liquidity problem. So we need to make sure that we always have plenty of cash in our bank account so that we can pay for our bills. We don't want to damage our credit rating, which may make it difficult for us to get finance in the future. Why having earned profit, the cash balance declined? Well, if we earned a profit, we have less cash, then maybe we did sensible things like we paid off loans, maybe we bought new fixed assets. So that was investing in the future, which means that we don't necessarily have lots of cash now, but because we're profitable, we decided to invest in the future, and that means in the future we're likely to make much more profit. That's an efficient use of our funds. Next one. So incomplete records. So there's a standard question here. that comes up. It's not in this particular one. They ask you, why is it a good idea, or what advice would you give somebody to do incomplete record? So keep keep record of all the money coming in and out of the bank account. Keep proper books. Make sure when you pay bills, pay by check, so you have a record of what the money was paid on. Keep copies of all of your receipts, all of your invoices sent and received, all of that. Accruals concept. So that basically means that an expense should be charged in the year that it was used, not when we paid for something. So if we paid money for a 2-year advertising campaign, we should only charge half of that in 1 year, and the other half should be an expense of the following year. So we're tying the expense to the period in which it was incurred, not in the period in which it was paid for. Okay. Next one, controllable, uncontrollable costs. So controllable things that we can decide ourselves. So you could say advertising is a controllable cost, wages is a controllable cost because we decide on how much we want to spend on advertising or wages. Whereas things like, let's say, electricity, maybe raw materials prices may be uncontrollable because they are outside our remit. Okay, we don't control those. Next one. What options do you have in cash surplus, cash deficit? So if I have spare cash, obviously I need to make sure that I always have some money in my bank account. I don't want to end up relying on bank overdrafts all the time because a bank manager may refuse to give me an overdraft, and then I may have problems with liquidity. So if I have spare cash and if I have too much money in my bank account, then that money is not earning anything for me. So I'm better off investing that in either a fixed bank account, or maybe I might use it to pay for fixed assets. If I have a cash deficit, that means that I'm expecting to overspend. So maybe I might do things like try and control my expenditure by, instead of buying fixed assets, I might lease fixed assets, or I might get them on hire purchase, or maybe spread it out over a term loan. Maybe I might try and see, is there any way I could increase my incomes? Maybe are there markets that I'm currently not selling into that I could try and sell my goods in? I could maybe go and take a short-term or medium-term loan if I know that for a period of time I'm going to be short of cash. So anything like that. On the basis of the budget, what advice would you give? So when you've done your budget, you would say, well, I would advise this company to, if you end up with a big cash surplus, you would discuss some of the points you mentioned above. If it's a big cash deficit, one of the things you say the cash deficit is there a reason for it? Is there an ongoing long-term problem with the business that we're maybe not earning enough cash? Are we overspending on fixed assets? So maybe I might advise don't go and buy that new van that we're thinking about buying this year, something like that. Okay, that's just to go through your general approach of how you do the theory questions. Look at the number of marks given. You see here, for example, with this one, they haven't told you how many marks is given for that. But going back here with the incomplete records, you can see they have shown you how many marks. So you could assume somewhere in the region 2 to 3 marks per point should be plenty. Okay, so I would say here, if I gave 2, maybe 3 points, that would be enough. Okay, I hope that makes sense.